Look at you with your come and see mug.
Mm. Just two Pharisees having a cup of coffee. That's
I
what's
know I was
happening right
trying to
now.
think of a cool way of saying it, convo with Pharisees, but that didn't sound good. I can't come up with a cool saying, but we got to come up with one.
We'll try and figure something out. If we do this again, we'll have a good title.
When Pharisees let their hair down. No, a pair of Pharisees. Pharisees.
What is happening, my friend? It is great to see you.
It's great to see you too, man. As you know, I've been traveling all over the place. I've got a very fun but filled schedule.
Yeah. And so you're shooting in Pennsylvania, and then you're slowly making your way west. Yeah.
Yeah, I started off in upstate New York, actually.
Okay.
Probably an hour from the Canadian border near a place called Plattsburgh.
Uh-huh.
I was teaching at a Bible discipleship camp there for 2 weeks.
That's right. That's right.
And then I flew from there to Pennsylvania, where we filmed the David film, David, A King's Calling.
Where you've gone from Pharisee to prophet.
Yes. Wait till you see this, man. It's natural beauty. It's going to be just a cinematic feast for the eyes. It was so fun to film.
Well, the pictures you were posting were really fun to sort of keep up and see what you were up to. And that costume is pretty cool, man. You look pretty intense.
Thank you. It was a cool costume. They did really well in the wardrobe. So I spent a better part of a week there, including a day visiting my daughter.
Yeah.
And then I came home for a couple of days. And then my wife and I flew out to Chicago to visit my oldest son. We were with him for a few days, and then we flew straight to Ohio to visit my number 4 child and his wife. And that's where we're at right now.
How amazing. That's so cool. And then you'll eventually end up in California, right?
Yeah, I'll be home in a couple of days, and then off to San Diego for about half a week or so.
Oh, that's awesome. And then you'll end up back home in New Mexico sometime in, late 2024.
I'll be home for, I think, 3 weeks, and then I'm off to in September. Yeah, I'm off to Chattanooga with my wife to see my number 2 son. And then I'll be home for about 3 weeks and off to Texas to speak at a Messianic synagogue there. And then I'm done traveling, I think, for a while.
Wow. And so you've got 4 kids spread out over the country, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. 4 kids, crazy. 4 different states.
Oh my gosh. I'd gut me if I have to say that someday. The boys can go, but if my daughter takes off, it's gonna kill me. I'm already like scheming behind the scenes to find a way to keep her in California, keep her posted.
How old is she?
Well, yeah, I think I have 4 kids, and they're all 16 years old. So I have quadruplets.
I think you told me that, but I forgot.
Yeah. 4 16-year-old kids born in 2007, and they are all about to be juniors in high school in like 3 weeks. Pretty wild.
And you still have hair, and it's not even gray. What's going on?
I barely have hair. I don't have that Jonathan Rumi stubble hairline, but I've got some hair hanging on. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Jonathan, I think I told you I was out on a ferry on Lake Erie when I started getting text messages that our scene was featured for the live stream this week.
Yeah.
And when I got back, I saw it, and it was pretty intense, man. You were amazing.
Dude, were you surprised that they decided to show that scene from episode 3?
Yeah, when I knew the live stream was coming and he said they were going to do a scene, I thought maybe they'll do ours, and I immediately discounted it.
Yeah.
And then boom, there it was.
Yeah. It was a big surprise for me. I just didn't think they'd go as far as episode 3, and I thought that they'd probably feature Jonathan in some way, but that scene is a big scene. Dallas said it's a 20-minute scene, and so and it's also pulled right out of scripture. I mean, it's right out of Matthew 23. So I just didn't even occur to me that they might show that scene. And I'd happen to, like, I knew the live stream was going to happen, and even before I was part of the cast, my wife and I would watch the live streams, and we'd watch the insider stuff because we were fans of the show. And so my wife was in the other room having a chat with my daughter, The other three boys were out doing like dirt camp and band camp and that kind of thing for the summer. Says, oh, I got some time. I'm going to sit down and see when the live stream comes on. And sure enough, it was like in 5 minutes. And so I'm watching just like anybody else. And then as he starts to set up the scene, I'm like, holy cow, are they going to do this? Are they going to show? Are they going to do this? And sure enough, they showed our scene. And that was pretty wild, man. It was pretty cool. It just gets me, and I think something we should say out front is that we are so blessed and privileged and thankful that the Chosen so quickly signed the interim agreement with SAG during the strike. If it's not for that, you and I would not be talking about this show. At this time, we'd have to wait until the strike was over or there was an interim agreement or something like that. So it is like really amazing that the Chosen like didn't even waste any time, snapped right to it, accepted the interim agreement so that they can continue and finish off the season. So that's a wonderful, wonderful privilege that you and I even get to talk about the show right now. And then to actually be able to see some of the work that we did was pretty amazing. It was pretty meaningful, and also reminded me of what a great time we had together, getting to know each other. And I'm telling you, man, from our perspective, in front of Jesus with all those disciples and all the women and all the crowd and all the Romans and Jed in the corner, giving a stink eye, it will forever be etched into my memory.
Same here. It was an amazing week. Best week of filming ever. I was so happy to be there, and it was great bonding with you and some of the other cast, and just being there with such a huge group of background actors. It was so dynamic. But when I watched the clip, I stood by you, every day for hours making that scene, but I never saw you face on.
Right. Because you're doing your job.
Angry looking Pharisee, brother. Like,
well,
you scared me.
I've got few friends left in Capernaum outside my pal Rabbi Josiah at this point. But you never know. You never know. Hopefully I can make a few more friends. We'll see. Hey, look, that was great on your part as well, watching you in between the two of our dialogue as well. It was some pretty wild stuff. And that's part I wanted to and Steve, by the way, what are we doing here? What's happening right now for the fans that might be watching? What are we up to here?
You and I?
Yeah. Well, why are we doing this Zoom?
Because we like each other and wanted to hang out.
That's right.
In addition to that,
yeah,
we wanted to give the fans a little something about, what are the Pharisees like off camera? What kind of people are we?
Yeah, look, we're smiling.
Yeah, I know, right? The smiling Pharisees. There's our show, the smiling Pharisees.
The smiling Pharisees. I love it. We finally got it.
I don't know if the fans realize that right now. I got to be real careful what I say, because even though there was that clip, I could still potentially give some spoilers.
Yeah.
Let's just say that the two Pharisees that Jesus was scolding in real life love Jesus. Jonathan, he's okay too, but I mean the real Jesus. I served in ministry for over 30 years.
Yeah. And
so it's interesting to play somebody who Jesus is yelling at, but in real life, I'm like, yay, Jesus, yay, Jesus.
Yeah. And same here. Our faith, my faith and our family is incredibly important to us. And that's, that's part of what I wanted to ask you, because I found The Chosen in a really interesting way. In fact, it just knowing The Chosen existed really did change my career. Just knowing that the show existed changed my career and put it on a different path. But when, speaking to you now, I'm speaking to what I consider a legacy cast member, Steve. You are a legacy cast member. I just came in at season 3. You are there from the beginning. And this was, I think your debut was episode 3 or 4. Is that correct?
Episode 4, season 1, yeah.
Episode 4, season 1. Before anybody on the planet knew what this thing was, you were there. And to follow that arc from where you guys were at filming season 1 to the cover of TV Guide and Lionsgate and possibly 8 episodes. I don't know if you heard in the live stream, putting all 8 episodes in the movie theater possibly this coming year.
I heard about that. Isn't that mind blowing?
It's bonkers. I'm so curious from your perspective, what has this journey been like? First of all, how did you find The Chosen as such a small production at the time, I'm assuming, leading up to what has this ride been like for you? Seeing how humongous it has gotten.
Well, it wasn't a small production, it was a non-production. I met Dallas before The Chosen was The Chosen. I reached out to Dallas after I saw the resurrection of Gavin Stone.
Okay.
Because when I saw that film, I thought, okay, this is excellent faith-based material. I'm going to work with this guy someday.
And that was his first film, right? That was like the film that he did out the gate.
Yeah, not his first film, but this was his first major film.
Like major film. Okay, yeah.
And as he's told the story many times, it flopped. And the end result, the Chosen was born. But when I saw that and I heard that it flopped, and I read his Facebook post about how discouraged he was and he was thinking about quitting filmmaking, I reached out to him and I said, I don't know why it flopped. It was an amazing film. Please don't quit filmmaking.
Wow.
And I was convinced that someday, it was my goal to work with him someday.
Wow.
So I followed him on social media. We stayed in touch, as you do on social media, sending each other messages here and there. And then The Shepherd came out, which was amazing. And then The Shepherd became the pilot for The Chosen. And when announcements were being made that The Chosen was being birthed, I was like, you're going to give me an audition for this, right?
Did you actually message him?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How could you not?
Yeah.
You got a Jewish rabbi in real life wants to audition for The Chosen.
Yeah.
How could I not at least get an audition?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I auditioned, and I auditioned for Nicodemus, and I auditioned for Shmuel.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I ended up booking Rabbi Josiah.
Yeah.
And so I was in season 1, episodes 4 and 8.
Yeah.
Then I wasn't called back for season 2, and I was so sad.
Oh yeah.
But when I got called back for season 3, I was just so happy.
And then season 4, yeah.
And then season 4. Season 4 was pretty interesting because I thought I was just coming in for a day like I had for the other seasons, day player.
Yeah.
And I had turned down a role in a new TV series because they wanted me to shave my beard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I couldn't do that. I was going to film a couple of weeks before The Chosen, so I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Turn down The Chosen or ruin my chances with The Chosen. And then after I turned down that role, I found out that I was being booked for the week and that my role was a bit more significant than in previous seasons. It was kind of like a gift from God. I turned down the one really cool thing, but I got something even cooler in return,
Yeah, absolutely. And dude, is it does it feel different being on set from episode 4 season 1?
Oh my gosh. Episode 4, it wasn't small. It wasn't an insignificant low class thing. It was first class from the get-go.
Yeah.
It was small.
Yeah.
And now they've got their own soundstage and huge piece of property. You got to take a van ride for a mile to get to Capernaum. The whole village is there.
Yeah.
And we're working with hundreds of actors. There's so much crew. I don't even know what a fraction of them do.
Yeah.
We get on set and there's just people everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. If anyone is curious, this is a fully functioning Hollywood set to compete with any other major production in Hollywood, for sure.
And then, as you know, been in the theaters a couple of times. It's been called by a couple of people the #1 show in the world.
Yeah.
Not in the US, though it's doing quite well in the US now. Time Magazine, Newsweek, Fox News, everybody's always talking about it. The New Yorker, I don't know if you read the article that just came out in the New Yorker.
I did. You posted it and I did read it. That was a really cool article.
Really cool article. So yeah, watching it blow up like this and being part of it, I'm just thankful. I'm pleased. You know what I mean? I'm blessed.
Yeah.
And I really like how the series regulars, Jonathan and the disciples and the ladies, none of them are like arrogant or cocky. They don't walk around like they feel like they're stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just good, friendly, decent people. And I love working with them.
You're absolutely right. And that's something very important, is that the cadence of the set, from the cast through the crew, all, like, I've done a lot of outdoor shooting, and outdoor shooting can be very, very complicated. In terms of The Chosen, we're oftentimes out in the crazy sweltering Texas humidity and heat. It can be very, very difficult. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknown elements. And I have never been on an outdoor set where the production takes such good care of everyone on set, from series regulars all the way to background extras. Everyone is being taken care of and being treated with dignity. That is not something that's normal.
Yeah, there's no yelling, there's no swearing, there's no tension. It's all very, very well run with a great spirit. Hey, fun moment. You're talking about the Texas heat.
Yeah.
Be honest with me now. Be honest with the fans.
Okay.
How did you feel when somebody came by and held an umbrella over your head because it was sunny?
Look, that was very, very gracious. Like you were saying, people are serving one another all over the place. And here's the horrible part about that. The thing I immediately think of is, we had some crew doing that for us, and then I felt bad because some of the background didn't have a lot of umbrella or shade. And so there was that one point where I was like, here, let me grab that. And I took it over to put it over some of the regulars who are right there next to the extras, and to hold it over some extras. And they immediately said, okay, we're good, let's go. And all the extras were like, oh, sure. The Pharisee teases us with some shade. And I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to be nice.
Oh, hey, here's another fun. Oh, by the way, I was embarrassed, like fan and bonbon time. And I know they do it so we don't get burned and our skin tone doesn't change mid-shoot.
Yeah.
It's not because we're like kings or anything, but it felt kind of weird.
It is totally weird. And like, especially like, you're like the two people who stand out so much from everybody else. And then on top of that, you get some of the little special treatment there as they're trying to get you ready for the scene. And you're like, this is, but hey.
To emphasize what you just said, everybody might not think of it this way. Yeah. But you and I, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Josiah, are standing in front of at least 200 actors and Jonathan. They're all looking at us all day, every day, day after day after day.
Yeah.
We are the total center of attention.
It's pretty wild, but you said it perfectly. It is a privilege. It is a sense of gratefulness to be able to be on that set, and to be part of this meaningful production. I was telling you earlier that The Chosen, just knowing The Chosen existed, had really did change my career. And this is one of those things, Steve, where it was like, there was a lot of people in my life saying, dude, you got to watch this Chosen. You got to watch this thing. And, I studied theater in college, and part of what we studied, was why is faith-based theater or media oftentimes sort of subpar. And so it was a passion of mine to see if we can't see if there will ever be a world in which any form of faith-based media would be as professional as any secular media. And so when people brought The Chosen to me, I was like, no, it's fine. I'm sure it's great. Thank you, though. And I avoided it forever.
Yes,
until,
I understand completely.
Yeah, you've been there. So until finally, like, one of my buddies is like, he just wouldn't leave me alone about it. So I was like, all right, got the kids, got my wife, and we're like, let's do this. Let's just watch episode 1 and get it out of the way so we can tell people that we've seen it. By the end of episode 1, I'm wiping tears from my face, doing this thing, and was completely blown away for a variety of reasons. But the first thing I did was I went straight to my computer and I emailed my agent at the time, not knowing the background, not knowing the story about The Chosen. I just straight up emailed my agent at the time and said, how is it possible that I did not get an audition for this show? That was the first thing I did. Then I went back to the show and crushed it with my family. I mean, I was like watching it by myself and then would watch it again with them catching up. But we finished the rest of season 1 very, very quickly, within just probably a week or so. And the second thing I did after finishing it was I went to chosengifts.com and or whatever it was at the time, and I bought like 24 DVDs of season 1. And the reason I did that was because I'm thinking to myself, there's all these old timers that we know, from my parents to, you know, just folks who I know would freak out over this show, that would have no clue how to access it streaming wise. Because at the time, you have the app, the VidAngel app on your phone or your tablet, and you had to throw it to the TV. And I was like, I know a few older folks who are going to be able to, so I went and bought DVDs and just started passing them out to just handing them out.
The same. It was a frustration of mine at the beginning too.
Right. I mean, for somebody who, you know, knows some technology, it's super simple. And I was actually really impressed with the audio and the color, the look of the show, the production value through the stream. But I just felt like there's going to be so many people who are going to miss this because they won't be able to figure out how to stream it. So bought those DVDs, give them to a bunch of folks. And here's Steve, here's why the show that you were part of at the time really blew my mind. A few different reasons. Number one is I'd say probably for the first time, I was watching a show where all the characters, the good characters and the bad characters, all looked like me. I've never seen anything. I mean, and there's no hyperbole here. There are few things out there that show Middle Eastern men and women in a positive light. To see an entire cast, and especially obviously, you know, from Shahar and Jesus all the way down, like all these people that look like me, that look like my family in positive roles, blew my mind. Mm-hmm. Because for the most part, you know, a lot of my career has been taking on or fighting post 9/11 stereotypes within my opportunities. That was one thing. More importantly, as I watched this, it was clear to me, I'm not watching a Christian show. I'm watching a prestige television show about the life of Jesus. That's what I'm watching. It was clear that the writers, and at the time, you know, Dallas, Tyler, and Ryan, they were doing something that had not been done. And they were breaking one of the rules of what we would call faith-based or Christian media, is that this wasn't just taking straight out of scripture and just performing the notes beat for beat in scripture. What they were doing was they were taking and writing these stories about these characters, creating the groundwork for these characters so that you and I, as the viewer, would root for these characters, fall in love with them, and root for them. So by the time they arrive in a moment in scripture that you and I might recognize, it just blows us away. It flattens us. That's why it was so powerful to me. So especially when Mary, you know, when Jesus heals Mary in episode 1, I'm in tears because I followed her from the moment the show started as a little girl. You learn she's lost her father. You see where she is. You see how her faith has been shaken, how she has no hope, how she's just let go of life up until the point. And Nicodemus tries to heal her. It doesn't work. And then Jesus shows up at the end. I'm like, Jesus, the who should be the main guy, you get him for 30 seconds at the end of the show. I was blown away. I was totally blown away. In addition to that, I was watching a production where there are, number one, I immediately IMDb'd everybody. These are all SAG actors. These are Screen Actors Guild professional actors. At the time, I recognized Jonathan because I remember him from the show Ballers. He had like a co-star role in Ballers. And I was like, I think that's, and I rewatched that first season a couple of times. So I recognized him. And then obviously Eric Avari, you know, I've probably watched The Mummy 100 times, right?
Right.
Eric Avari's in this. There's a sense of credibility to it because everyone is a professional Screen Actors Guild actor. And then on top of that, as an actor watching other actors, I could tell people, this is a production where not only the writing this is prestige television writing. These actors are making choices that are justified and grounded. And so are Dallas and his team. The idea, I mean, when I thought of Simon Peter, I always thought of him as sort of a heavy, burly, jolly man, right? And in this show, he's a brawler. He's all shiny and muscular with all vascular. Shahar with his vascular arms, looking all dangerous and getting into a brawl and trying to make money. I'm like, dude, I like that Simon. That Simon's a leading man. And immediately like, okay, his brother Andrew, they're different people. And by the way, how many of us out there like, oh, Simon and Andrew are brothers? Oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, you're introduced to Matthew. Matthew is on the spectrum. And I'm like, what a brilliant choice.
Yeah.
Like it completely makes sense that a dude who would begin his book with a genealogy would be like that, with precision and detail, to make that choice. And I don't know, I'm not sure if that was a production choice, if that was like in the audition notes for Paris, or if that was a choice he made. Either way, to do what people need to understand, to do what Paris does is hard. It is very hard to pull that off. And he does it in such a moving and endearing way.
Oh, Paris would win an Emmy in a fair world, easy.
Right. I immediately was drawn to and hooked to every single character. And then as the show goes on and every character gets introduced, I'm completely tied to them. They have a backstory. Their actions are justified. And then when you finally get to a moment in scripture that includes them, you're like, ah, or you're cheering or you're crying or whatever. That's what makes this show so special. And so I was in from the beginning and made it my life's work. Like I have to find a way on this show. And so long story short, I ended up changing agents. And to be fair to my previous agent, I had been what's called booked out for probably 6 or 7 years. And what that means is, in terms of the acting language, being booked out means that you've called your agent and said, I'm unavailable to audition. And we've talked about this a little bit, Steve. The reason is because, so my wife and I have quadruplets in 2007. And I won't spend much time on this, but my wife and I have quadruplets in 2007. And that's hard enough on its own. It's a wild thing on its own. But then at 2.5, when the kids reached 2.5, one of my boys was diagnosed with leukemia. And that was a whole thing on top of quadruplets, 3.5-year treatment, sent us back to the hospital, separated us from the other 3 kids in different ways. It was a really, really hard time. He gets healed, but then all of a sudden he begins to have seizures. And then all of a sudden we enter this time where from like 1st grade through 5th grade, he's now goes from little tiny seizures to like full-blown epilepsy with like 120 seizures a day. And in many ways, my wife and I would say like the seizures are worse than the cancer. And then from there, as we just started to figure out the seizure stuff, his cancer relapses. We go back to the hospital for CAR T-cell therapy. That doesn't work. 4 months later, he relapses again and he has to have a bone marrow transplant. So basically from the time the kids are 2.5, from like 2010, all the way through 2019, when he had his bone marrow transplant, were really, really tough days for my family. And it is really difficult, to be in an emotional place, like an emotionally centered place, to be able to audition and have any sense of credibility to try and give a decent performance, number one. And number two is when you're just in the hospital all the time, you don't have time to do this kind of stuff. And so I had to be booked out for a really long time. What I did during that time was I sort of started up a really good voice career, like a decent voice career, because I was able to audition at home and be at home and run out for these gigs and come back. They wouldn't take days. And so it'd been like 7 years in between since I'd booked something theatrically, which again, acting language wise, theatrically means something for movies or TV.
Hey, I know you don't like talking about yourself, but tell us a little bit about your voice credits. I know you've done some really cool stuff.
Well, thank you, Steve. If there's any video game fans out there, or if you have somebody in your family, if you have a dude in your family that plays video games, between the ages of 25 and 40, they might be fans of the Assassin's Creed franchise. And in the Assassin's Creed franchise, there's a different assassin. They take place in different parts of the world. And I play the voice of Altair in Assassin's Creed, which is the very first Assassin's Creed. So super thankful and privileged to be the original assassin in the franchise. And this has been a year, it's been really fun to sort of be connecting with fans for the very first time. Because again, I just did not have the ability prior to the last couple of years. And then of course, a ton of commercial voiceover work and audiobooks and that kind of thing. Do a lot of work for Netflix, a lot of voice jobs for Netflix. I've probably done a dozen voice jobs for Netflix in the past couple years. And all that is just, it's wonderful. I'm thankful to be able to do it, but my heart is for the screen. I love movies. I love TV. That's where I want to be. So as much as I'm thankful for and do enjoy the voice work, it just doesn't compare to, being yelled at by Jonathan Rumi on a hot, April day.
Hey,
So, yeah.
how's your son doing?
Oh, thanks for asking, Steve. He's doing really, really good. In fact, I'm super proud of him this year. He's this summer, him and two of the other kids have been like little counselors at a sort of camp that's happening in our city here in Los Angeles, in our community. And so we just got them out the door. And that's what he's been doing over the summer. And, we have a lot of challenges still, but man, that kid is a fighter. And he's got such a wonderful attitude. And then my wife, someone might be wondering, like, dude, you must have an incredible wife. She is a really incredible, amazing woman that I'm so thankful for and don't deserve. And she's been an amazing mother for all the kids throughout this entire time, and certainly through quadruplets and cancer as well. So thank you for asking. He's doing really, really great. And, my prayer over this kid every single night is, Lord, he's paid a high cost. Let it be worth it. He's paid a high cost. Let it be worth it. And I truly believe that any day outside of the hospital is the best day we've ever had. That's just my mantra. Like, everything is gravy. It just doesn't matter. If we are not in the hospital, it's the best day we've ever had. And that's it. So very, very grateful that time is behind us, and God willing, it stays that way. So thank you, Steve, for asking. But yeah, so I'd been booked out forever, and found a new agent just before the pandemic. And the first thing I told them was, hey, there's this show called The Chosen. Can you please keep it on your radar? And sure enough, I sign with a new agent on like March 10th, and then the pandemic starts like on March 11th, and everybody gets locked down. And so fast forward to the following July of 2021, I'm walking on the beach with my wife. It's our anniversary. I'm clean shaven. I'm tan. I'm looking my best. It's July 15th, 2021. I remember the date. We were walking on a beach in San Diego, and I get a call from my agent saying, dude, first audition back from the pandemic, The Chosen. You got an audition for The Chosen. It was wild, right? And so it was for season 2. It was for the paralytic at the pool of Bethesda. And dude, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is meant to be. I've not only been to the pool in Bethesda in Jerusalem, but went there with one of in 1998, me and my best friend at the time from college, we wanted to do this sort of pilgrimage through the Middle East. And so we grabbed our Bibles, and we just planned all the different places we wanted to go. Wow. And then on top of that, we got our Let's Go Middle East book. We just took a couple backpacks with a couple pairs of underwear, bathing suit, a few Cliff Bars, and we just went. And we went from Egypt up into Israel, Palestine, through Jordan, back through over the Red Sea into the Sinai Peninsula, back into Egypt, up the Nile to Upper Egypt and back. And it was like a 2-month trip, just him and I. I had a lot of stories from that trip, but the most meaningful one was to visit the pool at Bethesda with my buddy, who's a former paralytic. He's a former paralytic, former quadriplegic. On his 18th birthday, he broke his neck. And we visited the pool, and then we walked the Via Dolorosa all the way up to the foot of the cross. And I remember him writing his dad that day saying, Dad, you wouldn't believe what we did today. I went from the pool of Bethesda to the foot of the cross in the same day. And I just was like blown away. Like, it was incredible. And so I was like, oh, this part is meant for me. And then I was like, holy cow, like, I'm clean shaven. And Steve, I got in my head and I tanked that audition. I was terrible. And I'm not sure, I can't remember the name of the actor that they cast, but he's pitch perfect in his role.
He's amazing in that role.
He's amazing. And I did not deserve that part. There's a better person for that part. But then, like, as bummed as I was, 2 weeks later, I book reoccurring on SEAL Team for 4 episodes, right into Bosch, right into like 5 different shows, up to finally getting another chance for The Chosen. And you remember the rabbi in season 3, episode 3, who tries to chuck Jesus off the cliff. I auditioned for his part initially, and then got a call back for a different, and this was all auditioning at home for a different rabbi, Rabbi Akiva. Did that audition until finally Beverly called me in person, and Dallas was there. His wife was there, and Dallas said, "Hey man, you're too young for this other one, but I also had this other part where I need somebody with some intensity, and that's why I brought you in. You've got some intensity." I did my audition, and then he goes, "So where does this intensity come from? Where does this come from?" And I said, first of all, the subject matter in the scene that we auditioned was out in front of Jairus's house, my intro into Jairus's house. And he wasn't looking for anger. He was looking for intensity.
Mhm.
Because when you first meet Akiva at Jairus's house in season 3, episode 5, he's not angry. He is intense, but he's not angry. He's there to comfort his friend. And so I didn't approach that as an angry, stuck-up Pharisee. I approached the audition as a person who cared about his friend and who had just shown up to his dead daughter with this punk from Nazareth about to give him false hope. And so I'm protective of Jairus in that moment. Of all the Pharisees that could have been there, it was Akiva. They got to be close. And so that's how I approached that scene, and which does have a confrontation with Jesus, but it was more about my relationship with Jairus. And then, dude, it was like a 2-month wait before I finally got the call that I booked the role, and was just like, thank you, Lord. Like, I was so moved and thankful to be part of it, because it was clear that to me that this was a special show, that that not only was a prestige television show, but that had a profound connection to my faith as well.
Yeah. I think for everything that you've done, from what I've heard you say, this is the pinnacle. This is where your heart and soul is and wants to be. And it's also the same for me. This is where my heart and soul want to be. And I know there's going to be 7 seasons. That's the current plan.
Yeah.
The chosen universe, by God's grace, will be expanding. And
Yeah.
hopefully you and I will be in that universe until Jesus comes and takes us home.
That'd be amazing. And we're going to spoil all 7 seasons right now.
Well, hey, do you think we can do this again someday?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we should. And in fact, I think it might be neat if, like, if you're watching this and you have questions that, about the production or about our parts or just about anything regarding The Chosen, Steve and I love to talk about The Chosen. Leave them in the comments and let us know what you want to, what you'd like to know, and maybe you and I'll pop back on, maybe answer some questions. And I really think it'd be fun after season 3, maybe episode 3 comes out, for you and I to reflect on what we saw. It might be a fun thing. What do you think?
At that point, you'll probably have lost all your fans because of your argument with Jesus. And you notice I'm excluding myself because nobody knows where I'm at still, so I'm not saying anything.
Okay, so let's do this as a final question. Steve, are Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Josiah bad guys?
Ooh. There's such a conflict in that question. I would like to say, and again, I have to exclude Rabbi Josiah because nobody knows yet where I stand with Yeshua.
Yes.
We see him in that clip yelling at the Pharisees in general.
Yeah.
But you don't see my response to that yet.
Yes.
So
that's good.
I'm trying to be cautious.
That's a good call.
But I will say this. As a believer, in my theology, everybody starts out as an enemy of Jesus. Some choose not to continue as an enemy of Jesus.
Yeah.
Everybody, Pharisee, human, doesn't matter. We're all enemies of God's.
Yeah.
So the Pharisees in general are the preservations of the culture. They're the preservation of the faith. A lot of them were legalistic hypocrites.
Yeah.
But not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them were good, righteous, faithful men of God. When your character shows up in The Chosen, he's protecting and he's watching out for maybe people who are breaking the law of God.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned a few moments ago, as somebody who might have been taking advantage of a friend who just lost his daughter.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing.
Right.
And when a Pharisee initially confronts Jesus, it was required. Prophets needed to be examined.
Yeah.
So he comes on the scene as some new prophet. He claims to be all this and that and a bag of chips.
Yeah.
And it is the responsibility of the leadership, the Pharisees, to examine him and find out if his claims are true.
Yeah.
And even if he does a miracle, according to Deuteronomy, that doesn't necessarily mean he's true.
Yeah.
So there comes a point where a Pharisee has to examine the claims of Jesus up against the theology and find out if he's legitimate. And at that decision, if they choose that he's illegitimate, then in my theology, they become bad guys. If they choose he's legitimate, they become good guys.
Yeah.
Nicodemus became a good guy. We saw that.
Yeah. Where's
Akiva and Josiah going to come down? Where's Shmuel going to come down? Where's Yusuf going to come down on this?
Yeah.
It remains to be seen.
It remains. Hey, spoken like a legacy cast member. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. I'm sorry I don't have my chosen cup to drink out of.
Oh, you got a Diet Mountain Dew. That's a good call, though.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's like my favorite go-to right there.
So, Steve, where can folks find your stuff?
My stuff or The Chosen stuff?
No, just how do people connect with you? What platforms, what socials are you on?
Oh, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I try really hard to respond to everybody's post. Sometimes I might be busy and I might just like it or smiley face it. But if people ask me a question, I almost always answer it on Facebook or Instagram. How about you?
Yeah, same. It's really important for me to be able to connect with fans and hit fans back up for The Chosen or any of the other things that I've done. And I'm mostly on Instagram. Like Instagram is really the way that that I really connect with folks. But I'm also on Facebook as well. But yeah, pop on the Instagram, pop on Facebook. If you send me a note, I'm going to do my best to respond to you as fast as I can. And like I said, it's a gift and a privilege to be part of this show. And whatever we can do to celebrate that with other friends who love the show and other fans who love the show, we want to be able to do that, right?
Absolutely. Hey, you know what? We ought to do this again, and we should see if some of the others are available. Just do a total like a Pharisee podcast or something.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. We'll drop Sean a note. Maybe get Yanni in here. He cracks me up in the show, dude. He's so good. He's so funny. He's so good. But yeah, I like the idea, man. So until next time, Steve, I love you, buddy. It's great to hang with you, man.
Likewise. Thanks, man. God bless. Talk to you soon.
All right. Talk soon.
Ciao.